When I was 4, my parents took me into my first skateboard shop and they bought me my first skateboard. And I guess it was a big moment in my little life because everything about that moment has always stayed with me. Like, I can still picture the layout of the room. I can see the worker reaching up some kind of long metal instrument to bring the board down off the wall. I can still remember the board itself, black and neon with the words Hot Stick written across it in a slashy Friday the 13th kind of lettering. And most importantly, I can still feel that feeling of just pure excitement as I got on the board for the first time and headed down a little hill with my parents jogging to keep pace beside me. And ever since that early memory, I have always had in me this gnawing and drawing desire to find more and more and more adventure. I don't know if my parents buying me that skateboard at 4 was the catalyst for it, or if they were just responding to what they could already see growing in me, but either way, just the yearning for and pursuit of excitement has never waned. I think it's for that reason that school always proved difficult, because it just felt boring for me. Like, reading books and learning equations and doing these things just felt dull and tedious. I wanted to be outside on a skateboard or up on a mountain on skis or on the water behind a boat. I just wanted to be thrilled. Now, I tell you all that not for no reason, but because that has a lot to do with how and why I started really following Jesus, and then how and why I became obsessed with studying God's Word. I became a Christian like lots of little kids do who have parents or grandparents that love Jesus. Being maybe 6 or 7 a few years after that skateboard purchase, I sat on the side of a spare bed in my grandpa's house and I prayed along with him, asking Jesus to forgive my sins. And for many years after that, based on that moment and that prayer, I called myself a Christian. Whether I truly was or not, I don't know, but what I do know is that I definitely was not thrilled about any part of the Christian life. At best, I gave it all a half-hearted effort. It was, again, the same situation as school. It just felt boring. Skipping ahead over a bunch of years and situations and circumstances, I ended up reaching the ripe old age of 24, and I found myself back in school and sitting in a Bible college classroom. If you're thinking that something must have drastically changed in terms of that need for excitement for me to have ended up in a college classroom, you're wrong. Nothing changed. On a kind of whim, I followed some friends to Bible college just for something to do because I wasn't doing anything else. And truly, in every class I attended, I wondered why I was there and how fast I could unenroll and get my surfboard and get to the ocean or something of that sort. But then one day, against all odds, all of a sudden something did change. In fact, I would say everything changed. I enrolled in a class simply called the Gospel of John. As I'm sure you can tell by the course title, the class was aimed at one thing and one thing only: studying the Gospel of John. It was the first time in my degree program that I had taken a strictly Bible class, and it proved to be the most important class I would ever take. Just like remembering that skate shop experience when I was 4, I remember everything about that class on John. Like, I remember where I sat in the square seating arrangement that the teacher set up. I remember where other people sat in the square. I remember what books we were assigned to read. And most importantly, I remember the feelings that I felt from the first moments of the first class and on, pure, unadulterated thrill. Having spent my life up to that point incessantly pursuing the feeling of thrill, I knew exactly what it felt like, so I knew precisely when I had found it. And while I never in a million years expected to find it in the confines of a second-level classroom on the campus of a small Bible college, that is absolutely and completely what I found in that class on the Gospel of John. Now, just to be clear, the professor didn't do anything out of the ordinary. Like, he didn't show up on a skateboard or drop down out of a hole in the ceiling. He just showed up and he prayed for us and he began teaching us about John's gospel. He spoke about contexts and backgrounds. He unpacked terms and metaphors. He explained double entendres and John's literary techniques. And through all of it, seemingly boring things, he made the story of Jesus come alive. He made God's word for me and the gospel story it tells come alive. And for the first time in my life, I realized some seemingly simple or obvious things like that. There was history behind the stories in the Bible and history that I could learn about. There was actual meaning in the text that could be uncovered beyond just what I thought or felt they meant. All of this was a new revelation to me, and the result was a realness to who God was and what he had done. And there arose in me a newfound obsession with studying the scriptures and seeking to know the God of whom they spoke. I began every day sitting down with the Bible and opening piles of commentaries and books and just reading and studying and meditating on it all, believing for the first time that I really could come to know him through his word. And as I would just sit there sifting through the pages of the Bible, God seemed nearer than he ever had before. His gospel became more and more powerful and just heavy on my soul, and I found that I could only explain what I was feeling in one way. As I drew closer and closer to him through his word, I over and over discovered the same thrill, only magnified, that I had felt and chased for years on skateboards and surfboards and skis and boats and every other thing. Listen, fast forward, I am now 39 years old. And I still skateboard every morning before work and often in the evenings after my kids go to bed. And I'm still on the ski hill in the winters and in the ocean whenever I find myself near one. And yet now I know that all those things could go away and I would be fine. Because the feelings they produce are no longer what I'm after, what I'm chasing. Not because I got old and boring, though that's possible too, but because I found the superior adventure and excitement and thrill. On that day in Bible college and through the classes that followed, I found an infinitely more satisfying, unfading, ever-increasing thrill of which I have never stopped pursuing, and it is this: simply knowing God. You know, shockingly, I am still in school today and still in Bible classes, and now people pay me to unpack God's word, and every day the most exciting thing I do is study God's word, aiming and desiring to come to know him more fully. And it is without question the most exciting pursuit I ever have or ever will experience on this side of the new heavens and new earth. You know, I used to quote famous skateboarders to sum up my life. And now I quote men like J.I. Packer because now I understand what they meant and I feel something of what they so perfectly identified. J.I. Packer, writing in his book Knowing God, said this: knowing God is a relationship calculated to thrill a man's heart.